Hello, everybody. James here. Storytime with Dutch Mantell, episode 98. And me and Dutch have been having a very productive chat over the last half hour, and now we have to talk about wrestling instead. Which the only thing we talked about wrestling before we were recording was that Dutch decided that Dax Harwood of FTR looks like G. Gordon Liddy. That was the only thing wrestling related.
Oh, if you look at him, I'm thinking about Watergate, the cover-up. G. Gordon Liddy with that mustache, and I was trying to think of his name, but I never really went to Google and looked it up. But every time I see him, I said, "That damn is it Watergate." It just jumps out at me because I still remember that. I'm a history buff too. I don't know what it was all about, but I do, but I don't want to get into it. But he does look a lot like him, doesn't he?
Oh God, yeah. We should.
He looks like.
Have you ever seen a
Gordon
show called Drunk History?
No, Drunk History.
Yeah,
I got to play it.
Oh, so the
I would love it.
They have a comedian, and they get him absolutely wasted, and then they have to retell a story from history. So you could have whatever your tipple of choice is, and then describe Watergate for half an hour. I think that'd do really well.
Well, I still remember that very, very well. I do. So, because I'm a history buff anyway, and we're all living history as we go along. Just a lot of it they forgot to tell us at the time. And what we were talking about, if people want to know what we were talking about before we went on the air today, we were talking about the assassination of John Kennedy and Robert Kennedy. And now they have let out that, Lee Harvey Oswald and the guy that killed him were all government informants, and they worked for the government. Imagine that.
Was anyone going, what?
But I don't know. It's crazy at the same time. But, it's funny. Somebody could have pushed that nuclear button by now. By mistake. They almost set one off one time.
Leaned on it.
Oh yeah, that sorry, John. And some mistake off. But anyway, we're here to talk wrestling. Okay.
What did you say beforehand? Bobby Eaton said, because he was so southern. What was the thing he said?
Iced. Bobby Eaton said, "I whoop you iced." A-S-T, iced. He said that all the time. And Jimmy Hart used to have a saying, because I gave it to him. I would go to punch him. He'd get on the apron, and I would grab his hair, and I'd go to punch him. And I may have said this before. I've said a lot of things. And he would look at me, and he'd say, "I love you, Poopy." Now, who could hit somebody hard when somebody's just called you Poopy? And then it caught on, and then we all became poopy to each other. And here you got a bunch of wrestlers running around calling each other poopy. So that was an inside dressing room joke, but it was funny. So
everyone's called poopy. Everyone's threatening to kick everyone's iced. The whole bit. I'll do the plugs very quickly. Pro Wrestling Tees are on Pro Wrestling Tees. Links are in the description of this video and every video. You know the score. Diplomas, books, and hats. Dutch has them at Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2 L's at gmail.com for the signed stuff.
I have my website should be up and running within 2 or 3 weeks.
That's good.
How many times have I announced that?
You went through a period when we started doing this podcast of saying every week for months, and nothing ever happened. In fact, it's still linked to your old podcast from like 6 years ago. Like, well,
is it really?
Well, no, the old one did, but it's good that the new one's happening. The other thing is, I've got books as well. Owen, Hart, and The Rock. The links are in the description. You know the score. Facebook as well. Storytime with Dutch Mantell. We finally got over 1,000 people following us on that damn Facebook. I don't know what I'm doing on Facebook, and but my editor Chris is doing a good job filling it full of content, including exclusive content as well. So make sure to follow us there as well. And Dutch, we've got plenty of wrestling stuff to be talking about. What would you like? What would you like to talk about? I shall dictate to you what we're talking about.
Well, no, this is what I need to happen, and you too.
Okay.
You should be. I think Vince McMahon needs to come out with some more news, because right when this thing broke with him and the sex trafficking thing and the poo-pooing around the girl.
I love you, Poopy.
That gives new meaning to poopy right there. I mean, we did that and we did record views on it because everybody wanted to hear about it. Now Vince has holed up in his mansion in Stanford, I guess, and he's not making any news. But he did come out and didn't they make a ruling about an NDA or something this week?
No, we will get to it soon, though, because I don't know where it is in the script. I think it's towards the end, sadly.
Okay.
But, he has filed a complaint or a motion to dismiss or that kind of thing involving some clauses in the NDA that he claims means that Janel Grant's attempt to sue him for damages or, whatever's been unpaid is illegal because of the NDA. But as we were talking about before we went on air, most NDAs are unenforceable anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how much money Janel Grant or her lawyer, spends or, donates her time to trying to
Okay, I'm
disallow
off
this
the
NDA.
off the top of my head.
Mhm.
Let's say they make a settlement, and we'll never exactly know what it is, but we might know around the figure. What do you think that they would settle for, or she would settle for right now?
Because it probably will go to a settlement. That's the
And
annoying thing.
How much money you think?
8 figures. It'd go over 10 million.
Think so?
Yeah, and the reason being is because Vince has just sold $2.3 billion worth of shares, so I think 10 million to him is not going to be much.
No, I don't think it would be. That'd be like a tip.
Mm.
Really?
I need to be in his local restaurant if that's a tip.
Well, I'm going to say I'm going to go up on that. I'm going to say 15 million. I would think. Now let me ask you: if she gets $15 million, does she pay taxes on that?
You've asked me this before. I don't know. Lawyers out there, do you pay tax on legal awardings and such? That'd be interesting to find out. I don't think you do in this country, but did I tell you this, right? So the law was only just changed recently because of a high-profile case. A guy was wrongfully convicted and imprisoned for 17 years or something like that. He was in Manchester.
Yeah.
DNA exonerated him. He gets out. He's awarded like £1 million because the prison system has its own compensation scheme for the amount of time you've been wrongfully, incarcerated. And afterwards, it turned out that the prison system was actually going to withhold like up to 20% or something like that of the compensation for his food and board while he was wrongfully imprisoned.
Really?
Can you believe that? Yeah.
Wow. Well, I would think the state would be paying that, right? The state convicted him wrongly. I don't think he should be able to pay anything.
Exactly.
I don't think he should be required to pay anything, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, he successfully campaigned. This was only last year. He successfully campaigned to have the law changed there. But yeah, can you
Did it
believe
get
that?
changed?
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, that
So
was.
what was he
high-profile.
accused of? Murdering somebody?
No, I think it was
Being
rape.
a wrestler?
No, he got a caution for that.
Or impersonating a wrestler?
Impersonating a wrestler. There's a few out there.
There are a few out there. I've seen a lot of them. So,
right, let's move on to the wrestling news. We'll get back onto Vince McMahon and such later on in the show. And how, by the way, the big story we're going to be talking about is Tony Khan from AEW Dynamite yesterday as we record this. I haven't laughed that hard in some time, but we're going to save that for the main event of the show. For now, though, we're going on news from a few days ago and WWE firings. I'm going to give you the first half, and we'll talk about them, and then we'll go through the rest of the few. So it's been a handful of firings, and the biggest name that has been gotten rid of is Jinder Mahal. So Jinder's release was a big one for WWE fans because the company finally hindered Jinder for real.
hindered Jinder.
Hindered Jinder. This is via SE Scoops, by the way. He was fired in 2010.
Hey, he could have been misgendered.
I don't think anyone's misgendering him, unless he's
Well, I'm
filed
just
something
saying
very recently.
because it rhymes with gender.
Okay, so misgender.
Misgender.
Okay. No one's
Hey,
misgendering him.
if he did really undergo a sex change, he could be misgender.
He'd make an ugly woman. I wouldn't bother.
Okay. Yeah, he would make not a very attractive female.
Yeah. He says he was fired in 2010. I've got a feeling he was fired a little bit later than that. Anyway, he made his return a few years later. He had a drastically changed body. He looked like a Vince McMahon wrestler. Then he became WWE champion. But then in the last few years, he's barely used. And then with him getting fired is Veer Mahan, another Indian wrestler, and Sangha, another Indian wrestler. They've now got every single Indian wrestler.
No, seriously, I detect some anti-Indian bias here because I think they're prejudiced against Indian people. And I'd file a suit. That's what I'd do. First thing I'd do.
Funny you mentioned that. I was going to ask if that's even possible when you're an independent contractor. Can you file a lawsuit?
I'm sure it is. No, well, you can file a lawsuit or anything, but would it be effective? I don't know. We'd have to see.
I think they've got a racial discrimination case there because they're all Indian. They were all hired. Jinder was made WWE champion to appeal to the Indian population.
Mm-hmm.
Veer Mahan, Sangha, or trying to get some Indian people on the roster.
Okay, they made him champion to appeal to that. It's a huge audience in India.
Yeah, like 1.3 billion, yeah.
And so, did they run a show there? Did they?
Yes.
What?
They did.
They did.
So
when he was champion.
No. That's the comedy of it. No, they took the belt off him just before they went to India.
That's when Vince was still in charge.
Oh God, yeah, this is 2017.
Oh well, it makes sense now. See,
so he's the champion. I think he loses to Triple H. He lost as well, but he lost to Triple H because Triple H was still more popular. Apparently, the WWE network numbers in India actually went down when Jinder won the title. So the Indian contingent was not a big fan of Jinder as champion, apparently. And then they did a brief tour of India.
You've been to India?
No, I've never been to India.
I have.
How was it? Oh, well, yeah, you went with
Woo!
Ric Flair?
No, if I'd have went with Ric Flair, I'd have left his ass over there. So, one thing about the Indian people, very, very polite. They were. They're like little kids because we pulled up. We made some appearance somewhere. I think it was an auto factory. And so we toured it. I don't know why. But when we pulled up in the car, they all just came out and they stood around the car and just not trying to really talk to us or anything, just looking at us. And it was like, and they kept coming. And it was like, I bet by the time that we was only there about 10 minutes parked in the middle of the street for some reason. I don't know. But I bet there was 500-700 people just standing around, and he was all trying to get to the front. And we went to this is another thing we went to. We went to a school, and it was I forgot what it was, a car plant, but they made the cheapest car in the world there, and made the most expensive car. I don't even know what kind. It was a Jaguar or something. I don't know. But they have their own school on site. We went to the school during, playtime, I guess. And these kids, and they tell them to line up. And of course, the kids were excited because we were all on TV there, and they kind of knew us, and we were somebody. And the teachers all carry like little sticks, and they'll tell them once to get in line. If they don't get in line, they whack them. Then they line up. But they were very well disciplined. It might take a stick to get them there, but they were well disciplined kids, and they're very nice. That's what I noticed about the Indian people. So when we pulled off, we were going a road to get to the school or get to where the factory was and the school. It was all in the same place. The roads were like, I don't know, I expected to see horses and wagons. And it was just, traffic was just horrible. And the people, they blow the horns like, I don't know, every 15 seconds, every 5 seconds, beep, 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 beep. But the beep, beep is not like, get out of the way, you idiot. It's like, beep, beep, watch out, I'm on this side. Or beep, beep, watch out, I'm over here. Okay, just watch me. You know, like the lines in the middle of the road.
Oh, they're just a suggestion.
Absolutely. It's supposed to be a 2-lane, but it is a 3-lane or a 4-lane. It's whatever it is. So, but it was just chaotic out on the road. Soon as we turned off into where the factory was located, I swear to God, you thought you'd entered a massive park. You had flowers and you had trees and groomed grass, and they really, really took care of it. And we went inside and toured around and left about, I guess it was 2 hours later. But a massive, massive change from out on the regular street to where a private business took over. But I enjoyed it.
You're going to miss Jinder Mahal.
Yep, I will miss him.
Yep. Have you ever seen him wrestle?
I bet he ends up in TNA.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just thinking.
Not AEW.
I don't think people in AEW know who Jinder Mahal is. I really don't. And I don't think Jinder Mahal would even help AEW at all. Period. I mean, if the really big stars like Edge and all those guys, they didn't help them that much. It's like anything else. They can go there, but as soon as they're there like a month, you say, wait a minute. He's less over here than he was over there. See, Edge was a big star. Then they brought him over there, and he's just one of them. So I don't know.
Well, you could go over there and be one of, I don't know. Probably, I think TNA is probably a good shout. Let me just go through the other people who have been fired. Xia Li, Chinese guy, barely showed up. Zion Quinn, barely showed up. Von Wagner, he was a part of the April 9th, never even made it to Raw or SmackDown, but he was drafted as a free agent in 2023. So he was completely wasted. And then the last one is Cameron Grimes, who, after not appearing on TV for about a year, Cameron Grimes was released from WWE. He let fans know this in a passionate and emotional video message that he later deleted. But you saw that video before it was deleted, so what do you think of the post from Mr. Grimes there?
I don't get it. Listen, guys, if any of you are thinking about getting into the wrestling business, you're going to get hired to get fired. And let's say you're 25 years old. At the most, you can expect maybe a 10-year visit. And that's if they use you. And then you got to get in something else. Now, if they use you right, yeah, there's a lot of money to be made, but there's billions of people in the world, and WWE has hired maybe less than 1/1,000,000th of 1% of people to work for WWE. So Cameron Grimes, a Southern boy, he's an American, and he went over there and then he got released, broke his heart. So he did this video where he is actually crying about getting released. You know, hey, if I cried every time I got released, hell, I just spend most of my time just bawling. You know, I don't have a job. I don't know what I'm going to do. So, and I can see why he released it. It was kind of embarrassing, really. And I feel sorry for him that he lost his job. But hey, he went through the NXT thing, but they saddled him with this gimmick that was bound to fail. It was doomed from the beginning, and that's that good old boy Southern gimmick, which there's nothing exciting about it at all, and made him and he's really, really good in the ring. But he went out there with the long hair, and he just looked like, if you walked into any place down south, you see those guys that are sitting around with, they're all the same. There was nothing that stood out about him. Now, his work in the ring was very good. I'm not saying that. It's the way he looked overall. But Cameron, I'm glad you took it down, because that embarrassed me. I started crying watching you cry. I went, my God! Now, am I being forced? And I was cussing you too, James. I said, that James sent me this, made me watch it.
I didn't watch it. I just sent it to you.
Yeah.
I get so embarrassed. I get so embarrassed on other people's behalf. I couldn't watch it.
Oh, man. But anyway, Cameron, I forgot his name, what his name was in TNA.
Trevor Lee.
Trevor Lee, right. And I liked him. I really liked the guy. And I think maybe, just maybe just creative dreaming here, if they'd give him something else with a little bit of an edge to it. But that good old Southern boy, damn, give me a chew of tobacco and let me change your oil, or whatever they gave him, it was dead on arrival. Let me say that. It could be and they actually put him. Yeah, they actually didn't do him any favors by giving him that gimmick. So, but anyway, he's gone now, and I think he will meet success somewhere.
So, I think we say out with the old, in with the new kind of thing. And one thing that is new that we actually talked about last week, and we're going to weirdly talk about again this week, is there are new WWE tag team titles. But because there are two sets of tag team title belts, we only saw the first set debuted. And by the time the show had come out, pretty much more or less then, a second set had debuted. So, because we reviewed the first set of belts, we're going to review the second set. So 1 second, let me get the photos up. Right, okay, we're back, and I'm going to debut. Here we go. The new tag team titles for Raw? SmackDown? I can't remember. Does it matter? So there you go.
So that is Raw. That is the Raw belt.
It's one of them. So
now wait a minute. Now they separate, so they're not going to be like
unified.
They're going to have two sets of belts.
Yes, these are the old ones.
That looks cheap as hell.
Yeah, I never liked those.
And they're not cheap, but they look cheap.
Yeah, they look like coins.
That looks like a flea market belts.
Yeah. So there you go. So that is the new one then. It seems sort of designed on the old 80s version with Demolition and the Hart Foundations and that kind of thing. And, Bob Holly.
So now, okay, kid. Is that gold or white gold?
That's a good question because, look at this one. So we've got yellow gold for the round one, and then we've got a rather more dull gold for that. Last week you were complaining that there wasn't enough colour in the new belt on the round one. What do you think of? It's rather muted, colourless. The other one.
Well, there's no colour in the new one. Looks like to me, at all. I don't know.
Improvement, at least.
No, they have changed the belt so many times. They all tend to run together now.
Funny you mention
that. It's just another belt. Plus, you can go online and buy any kind of belt you want. It may be a cheap version, but you could buy them, and so they're not exciting anymore. They're really not.
So these are these are ones from the mid 2000s. You can review that if you wish.
Not impressed.
No. Right, now I've got to undo it. This was the SmackDown version from around the same time period in the 2000s.
Okay, I thought SmackDown was red.
No, SmackDown's blue.
Is it?
Yeah.
And Raw is red.
Yeah.
I get them confused.
So those were those ones, and then this the classic version. That's
I like the classic. That looks good. That really looks good.
Yeah.
See, the WWF is it's just it's just banging on you, and it says world in the middle. So you can't get it confused with anything. That's a nice looking belt there, and I like the black leather. It's traditional.
Now there's a variation with Ted DiBiase and IRS where they've got rid of all the color.
Yeah.
Entirely, and it's just black in the center. Better or worse?
It's not worse. Those are nice looking belts.
Evil.
At IRS, that bastard.
Now, this is early 80s. Almost looks like a tobacco tin. Do you know what I mean? Got that kind of silvery kind of thing going on.
Like a what now? A tobacco?
Or like a cigarette case kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. What is the reason they're changing these belts so much?
Well, I mean, this was 40 years ago, this one.
And I know, but how many changes have they gone through?
Good question. We're going to find that out together, actually. So this was in the early 80s, and then this was in the 70s.
I think it's because Vince was bored very easily.
I think, well, in the later years, I think, well, maybe that as well, but I think also that they're just trying to sell more belts.
Now, what belt is this?
This is the World Tag Team Championships from the 70s that looks suspiciously like Bruno's World Heavyweight title.
Suspiciously. And it looks a little bit, with that light blue, that looks highly unmasculine for some reason.
Baby blue. And one more. Your old pal. I don't know if he was your old pal, actually. I'm presuming he was.
Handsome Jimmy.
Handsome Jimmy and Luscious Johnny. You can barely see the photos there. So, this is the oldest version of the WWF tag team title I can find.
Yeah.
And I believe they were based on the Detroit NWA titles. But opinions on this?
I hate that. I really do. That looks like something you'd see in damn Saudi Arabia.
Why Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. Just the way the little things pointing here and there, and take the English off of it. I wouldn't even know where it was from.
Yeah, fair enough. There you go then. So at least an improvement on the old ones.
Okay.
Right. We're going to move on. Forbes. We talked about this about 10 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago, something like that. So we're rehashing some
how much the companies are worth?
Yes.
I don't get that either.
No.
What do they base that on?
That's a good question. So we're going to explore that together. Forbes came out with an article on the 18th. When's this? 25th. So a week ago. UFC is worth 11.3 billion, which is about what everyone thought. Now, number 2 is WWE. This is most valuable combat sports properties, according to Forbes and Forbes only. Second, WWE with 6.8 billion. 3, AEW with 2 billion. Number 4, One Championship, 1.3 billion. And number 5, Matchroom Boxing. That's Eddie Hearn's boxing outfits, $850 million. Apparently, that is what it's worth. But what's really important is WWE and AEW. How do they get WWE to 6.8 billion, and how do they get AEW to 2 billion?
Wait a minute. What was that last thing you said? The boxing deal, $850 million.
Yeah. So
what is this? I never even heard of it.
Well, really, the thing is that boxing isn't centralized. It's got loads of different promoters promoting boxing matches, unlike UFC, which they make their own rules and regulations and just have it all centralized, and it's just one big company in and of itself, rather than a load of almost independent contractors in that sense. So that's why boxing, as far as promotions go, are worth so much less than UFC, for example.
Well, I don't know how they get to these figures, but for AEW to be worth $2 billion, and everything I read about them is they're losing money. Their TV contracts don't add up to $2 billion, do they? Over 10 years, do they?
No. Well, it was a 5-year contract that's up this year. So will
it be renewed?
Who knows? We don't know.
It could be renewed. I don't know if they will renew it at the same price. So what did they end up getting?
We don't know yet.
55.
It's not happened yet. That'll be
Yeah, but
later in the
the
year.
old price, what were they getting?
We don't know. I think someone guessed around 50 to 70 million a year at the time, and we don't know where Collision. That's probably with Collision and Rampage. So we simply don't know at this point whether they're going to have to get a substantial increase to break even.
Well, I wouldn't even know that. To me, that's guessing.
Mm.
So I don't know what they're getting. But apparently, Tony Khan is not worried about losing money if he is losing money. So he's running the course with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. But if you look at, I don't even watch AEW anymore. See, when I was before I was doing a report on it every week, and I was sitting there watching it every week, I was bored out of my brain. Sometimes it would be okay, but most of the times, nah. But this was actually when they were a lot hotter than they are now. And I still couldn't watch it. I mean, to me, wrestling fans they're weird to me because they will watch bad wrestling sometimes and just watch it. I don't know what the deal is. See, when I watch something, it's got to interest me, and it's got to have a good little point to it. But AEW has no points to a lot of things. I think they've lost their way. They're in the middle of the ocean right now on a big ship, and their compass is broken, and they don't know which way to go. They know east and west. They can tell that, but they don't know exactly the points off the center to go to actually get to wherever they want to get to. And they're just floating in the middle of the ocean, and wherever the winds take them, that's where they go.
Well, this is according to Forbes only. Even Dave Meltzer said 2 billion is ridiculous. So anyway, I'm going to read a tiny bit from
wait a minute.
You tell me.
Dave Meltzer said that?
No, even Dave Meltzer was like, no, maybe 1 billion, maybe 2 billion is ridiculous, but...
Well, I hate to say I agree with him, but I kind of nod in his direction on that one because $2 billion, that's $2 billion is that's a lot of money. And I don't know what they base that on.
It's an unfathomable amount of money. Anyway, I'm going to read a little to you and you react to it, of course. Right, so we're a broken record. We're saying the same thing that we said about 3 months ago. Forbes article released this a few days ago. So this is from the same guy, Mike Ozanian, or Ozanian, however you pronounce it, who also said several months ago, he's the guy, or one of the guys who said it's worth $2 billion. He also said that valuations are more art than science. So
no kidding.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Tell me about it.
It's called guessing.
Yes.
It's what it's called.
It says, which means you can put down whatever it is you want based on what you feel. So, and I'm totally calling it out now. It's so biased, this article, and it's not even for AEW. This is more for WWE at $6.8 billion, and I'll tell you why in a second. So the $2 billion valuation is ridiculous. That we're talking about a money-losing company who, despite turning over $154 million last year for 2023, according to Brandon Thurston, this is up from an estimated $100 million in 2022.
Wait a minute, who is Brandon Thurston?
Oh, he's one of these analytics types for wrestling companies. He's
never heard of him.
Well, there you go. He's more well-respected than the other guy, let me tell you about this. So anyway, a year ago... Forbes, and this is Forbes themselves, discussed Endeavor's acquisition of WWE. It wasn't really an acquisition rather than a merger, but they referenced WWE being valued at and agree with $9.3 billion. That's what it was said a year ago. That's what they were floating it on the open market for. And that's basically what they're valued at by many people smarter than us. So how have Forbes shaved off nearly $2.5 billion off WWE's valuation when they're doing all-time record revenue, including $1.33 billion turnover in 2023 alone? And AEW, a company that's believed to never turn a profit and is generally on the downside slide engagement and viewership and ticket sales-wise, at $2 billion. And Forbes, and here's another thing, Forbes has claimed that AEW's turnover for 2023 was $250 million. Brandon Thurston says it's more like $154 million with a $34 million loss for 2023. I'm not believing Forbes at all here.
Well, they just said it's more of a guess than anything else. Now, Forbes is a financial magazine, right?
Yeah, but they're ignoring what they've agreed WWE's price was a year ago. And they're getting different numbers than everyone else.
What happened to the days when you say, you go to a show and you say, oh, God, what? You see the house? Mm. And one guy said, house? What house? There's no house out there. There's like some people just sitting around hollering at each other across the arena. And that's where the old saying comes from. Hey, you could have shot a shotgun off in the place and still not hit anybody. But at least WWE now, they're selling out the arenas they go to. Mm. And what's the reason for that? I'm going to get to this point just a little bit later. They got a story. They got a story you can follow, and you go, and they made wrestling fun again. AWE is torture to go watch it and try to figure out what to do because they don't even know where they're trying to go. I don't quite understand it, but this is nothing new. I've seen a lot of territories I was working in, and I still didn't understand it then. I just showed up where I was supposed to show up, wrestle who I was supposed to wrestle, got along and moved on down the road. So this business never ceases to amaze me, really. But WWE has really turned it around, and AEW, they're in worse shape now, I think, than they were 2.5 years ago.
Well, they're worth $2 billion now, which they weren't 2.5 years ago, according to this one.
But that's a guess. That's just a guess.
Mm. I'm going to read one more brief thing, then we'll move on. Just keep in mind also that WWE has 90% market share in the pro wrestling market, according to the MLW antitrust lawsuit that was settled recently, and turns over nearly 10 times more than AEW. Yet, according to the Forbes and also makes money. And according to the Forbes valuation, is less than 3.5 times more valuable than AEW. None of it makes sense. And just to finish off, Bellator, the MMA company, was also losing money. It was a dying company, but it sold for $500 million to one championship. So,
wait a minute, it sold for only $500 million?
Bellator did, yeah. But it was dying, that company. That was absolutely dying.
What would make it worth $500 million? A TV contract or something?
Barely had a TV contract. Nothing.
They got a bunch of rings?
You have to about like 50,000 rings to make it worth that much. Just I think one championship just bought it for $500 million. And
okay, Forbes. I'm gonna tell you, you're full of shit. I think we can just write that off and say, don't even write anything else about wrestling, because you're highly ill-equipped to even write about any finance if you're gonna value AEW at $2 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Never make it.
Yeah, they've overvalued them. They've undervalued WWE. Anyway, next one is Chris Jericho getting booed heavily at AEW Dynasty pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. So. Mm-hmm. One of the interesting stories to come out of that pay-per-view last weekend was just how badly Chris Jericho was booed. And it wasn't like the biggest boos in the entire world, not like Dominic Mysterio, but it was more a lot of individuals just yelling at him rather than sort of like chanting or anything like that. Although there were some chants as well, including please retire and go home, Jericho.
He loves it. I actually like it. Because listen, he worked against this, and they turned it around on him. So Jericho, he's smart enough. He's not going to go against the winds. He's not going to go against the grain. He'll just turn himself heel because he's a heel anyway. So why fight it and go with it? Because I did watch the match, the end of the match with him and Hook. And it was not a bad match. I mean, not work-wise, but reaction-wise from the crowd. They had literally hated Jericho. And if Little Hook had gone over, and this is what I think, he's going to they're going to really start pushing Hook now, because if he gets that reaction that he was getting, because he's the only star that I think they can really, really make in AEW. I don't think he's good on interviews yet, but I think he has the connection and the chemistry with the crowd to really advance. I really do. Now, how old is Hook?
Ooh.
22, 23?
Early to mid-20s, yeah, he's a young man.
So, and he has room to grow. The fans have time to grow with him. And I think they got something with Hook, not because of them. But this is all Hook. I mean, you cannot manufacture chemistry with fans. Companies can't do that. They can put you out there, but the chemistry is solely between the performer and the fans. And they like him because he looks like he's offbeat. He's a little odd and he's a little weird and he's a good looking kid. And, so the kids like him, the girls like him, and he got an amateur background. So he's very, very good in the ring. So when you put him in there like a veteran like Jericho that can maximize what he brings, you got something. So, and I was just thinking, I was watching the match, even though Jericho went over, he was antagonizing the crowd the whole time.
He did, and he got in the ring at one point, and he just did a little like that to the crowd. He like, they absolutely reacted, and loads of people are saying like, "Oh, he's got go home heat with me." So hang on, they're all booing him, and when he's on TV, the ratings go up. So how's that go away heat?
No, it's not go away heat. It's just the way of saying it. I think they might be a little bit jealous of Jericho, because I think Jericho's thinking, wait a minute. He looks out of shape. He's got a little belly on him, so which adds to his heat. And here's Hook. He's not all muscled up yet, but he looks in shape and young. And Jericho is getting exactly the reaction. I don't know if he wants that reaction, but since he's getting it, he's not going to fight it. He's going to go with it. And now that is something that I might watch. I might watch the development of Hook with Jericho. But the problem you run in there is the next heel that he gets won't be as experienced as Jericho. And you may not get the same reaction. But I think if they keep Jericho and Hook together, and Jericho gets mad at Hook, and he goes and he finds these different opponents for Hook, now they got a story. And that's a story that can take you months to get through. And Jericho, every time you bring Hook's name up, he just goes nuts. And he's going to say he's going to bring Hook down to ground level and teach him that, hey, how tough the wrestling business can be. That is a story that they could work on. And so, Tony, if you want to steal that idea, you can. Just send me a check in the mail like every couple of weeks or so.
Well, the original story was Jericho teamed with Hook. They were both good guys. And then the next week wasn't. And then the next week they were fighting at the pay-per-view. And then this Wednesday. Did you watch Jericho and his acceptance speech of the FTW title? Did you see that video?
No.
Did you not watch that?
No.
Oh, okay. I did send
I didn't see it. I didn't get it.
Oh, it's funny. Anyway, I think he invoked the name of Terry Funk as far as like an babyface interview where he wants to thank.
All these quotes these guys say is from Terry Funk. I don't think Terry Funk said that stuff. Terry Funk he's too much laughing around. He may have said it, but I don't think he realized what he was saying. Terry Funk was different. He could say anything. He could do the Gettysburg Address. But and what he taught young guys is, hey, just you got to listen to the crowd. You got to connect with them before anything. I've always said that. But the match with Jericho and Hook, I think it's got legs. I think he can run a while.
We'll get off Jericho in a second. Why do you think that people hate Jericho at this stage of his career?
I don't know if they try to say it's because of what happened with that Kyrie girl.
Yeah, Kylie Ray.
I don't think that it's.
No,
I think they just. I just don't think they like.
Yeah.
They think Jericho is one of the old timers who keeps hanging on and keeps kind of dogging young talent that's trying to climb for his just loyalty to himself, and they like Hook, and they wanted Hook to beat him. You take a business that's predetermined, and all of a sudden it's not that way that you want it. Well, you get mad at it. The people do. And if you look at Jericho, I think they think he's just hanging on for the last stages of picking up a check. I think that's just what they're kind of pissed about. And if you look at Jericho, he has put on some extra pounds, but he makes up for that with ring psychology and ring timing. You can't teach that overnight. Of course, you can't teach getting in shape overnight either, because I've tried. I'm still not there. But I think they want Hook to do well, and they think that letting Jericho will hold him back. I don't believe that, but if they do this right, I've seen angles, and one guy could not work a lick, but yet it sold out because of the story. And I beat story to death, but that's what it is. It has to be a good story. And that's a natural. The older Jericho and the younger Hook. Jericho wanting to hang on and Hook wanting to climb. Because you got to get your young people involved in this. And they identify with Hook.
I still like that Taz was the most over. As soon as he stood up, he didn't even do anything, and the people went, whoa, freaked out as soon as he stood up.
Well, I think they should involve him. What happened to him? Who beat him up? Jericho beat him up?
No one's. Did he get pushed over recently or something? But he can't really do anything physical. He's got a bad knee, and also his neck is terribly messed up. It's what caused him to retire in the first place. And he hasn't really done anything physical in wrestling since.
Well, there's no need to get in that ring if there's some doubt with your health. Because if you got a bad neck, the last thing you want to do is somebody tugging on you and you going down on that mat, because anything could go wrong. But we'll see where it goes. I'm interested in this angle.
We shall keep tabs on it. We will move on as well. Tessa Blanchard, someone we've not talked about in a while, has apparently had preliminary talks.
She's nuclear heat.
Wow, well, we'll be getting onto that. Don't you worry. She's apparently had preliminary talks about returning to TNA. So you tell me if I'm wrong or right here first, but one of the most talented women out there, probably the most loathed active woman in real life, and also one of the most difficult to work with. Is that a good summation of Tessa?
I've only met her once. I didn't work with her. But I've heard these things about her. She's very talented, stubborn, strong-willed, and they've done some things with her that I totally disagree with. But what came out when she used those racial slurs or whatever she used, you don't get over that overnight. It's been, 3 years?
Longer, 5, 2019, apparently.
Wow. So, but anyway, what were you asking me? Is any of those things deserved? Well, she's a smart ass too, I heard.
Aren't we all? That shouldn't go against her. Anyway, the thing that Tessa's most famous for, at least in ring, I guess, is that she won the Impact, as it was still called Impact, it wasn't TNA at the time, Men's World Heavyweight Championship in what was probably one of the most controversial, high-profile booking decisions of modern times. She was then fired while she was still Impact Champion because she apparently refused to send in taped promos from Mexico, where she had quarantined during the initial COVID outbreak and has been, with a couple of exceptions, persona non grata ever since. At the time, she defeated Sami Callihan, which hardly did wonders for his career either, or the belt or anything.
Hey, listen, this women competing as men or men competing as women. Why even have different? If you're going to do that, why even have a different classification? Just have them all just compete for one belt. But a woman beating a man, really, you can say what you want to. I don't think it's believable at all. Now there's probably a lot of women that can beat men in several things, but by and large, she's not that big. Sami Callihan was supposed to be like a crazy guy, but for her to pin him or beat him for the heavyweight championship, and it didn't distinguish men or women, did it? They just had a title, but they had a women's title too. I don't know. Mm-hmm. No, I would have never done that because I think it makes people. I think that it makes them back up and say, "Do they think I'm stupid?"
It's a leap too far.
I think it is. Now that's my opinion. I'm allowed to have an opinion, whether you agree with it or not. I don't care. You can have your opinion too. But if you're going to have a woman beat a man in his own division, in a men's division, why even have a woman's division? See what I mean?
Mm.
I mean, if you talk about this, oh, you're this and you're that, and you're anti-transgender, and I don't give a crap. I don't. But I don't know. You got me going again. And don't get me started on this because I won't shut up about it.
We'll stick about the intergender matches. They seem to really catch on for whatever reason, like the mid-2010s on the indies, and it just seems to be constant. And I always thought they were unbelievably stupid. And at some point you have to, I mean, we all have to suspend our disbelief when we're watching wrestling to a point anyway, because we've all seen UFC. And the whole style is different anyway with wrestling and real fighting, but then you've got a 200-something pound man fighting a 120-pound woman, and where's the entertainment in that? Because you can't suspend your disbelief. It's weird seeing men elbow women in the face.
Well, I remember I was in TNA. You couldn't even look at a woman because of Spike TV. Oh, don't you even make a suggestion about hitting that woman. Oh, they would go nuts in the corporate office if you even thought about it. So, but now they're not on Spike anymore. But that was a network decision that, we got to, and I agreed with it. Yeah, I did agree with it. But there are some things you could take, say a man abusing a woman, and then somebody take up for him, or two women get up and they team up on this guy. Yeah, now you got a reason for it to happen. But her going in and beating a guy, we suffer from a lack of believability to begin with. And now you have a woman beating a man, Sami Callihan, who's presented as a pretty tough guy. Nobody believed it. I don't think you could draw a dime with that or a rating at all. Now, you take Gunther, the way Gunther is, people believe he'll go out there and just beat people up.
Put a wig on Gunther.
Oh, yeah. That'd and work. some Hooters.
Yeah.
Put some Hooters on him, maybe get his hips out a little more and shave his legs. Now we make him presentable for this TV show.
Where's Sami Callihan when we need him? He's actually back in TNA.
That's the thing about wrestling. I've seen some really, really crazy ideas. But if you don't have anybody to pull you back, or we don't have any rules for it, really. Oh, well, you can't do this. You can't. It's just all made up on the spot most of the time anyway. But if you get something Okay, let me tell you a more believable matchup. Amazing Kong or Awesome Kong versus Sammy Callahan.
Yeah.
I would have believed that. Well, not believed it, but it would be more believable.
It doesn't strain credulity as much.
Well, I think she could go out there and do her stuff and get it over. People say, "Well, he won't walk through Awesome Kong like maybe he did some other women," but every instance is different. But I think putting the belt on, what was her name again?
Tessa
Blanchard. It wasn't a good idea. They didn't draw anything from it, right?
Impact was absolutely dead on the vine at that point anyway.
This was when Dixie Carter was still in charge, right?
No, this is a post-Anthem purchase. So this is 2020. So this is after you were there for that year in catering. Do you know who was good without this size? Do you know who was really good at intergender matches that you could sort of believe? It was Jackie. You know, Miss Texas?
Oh, yeah, she was. Because she used to beat the shit out of Jeff Jarrett. Punch him, and I mean, Miss Jackie is tough. And you believed her. Because I was there when she came through in Memphis. And she was tough then. And that is one girl that I think that she could hold her own in a fight. A real fight. She's tough.
We're going to go back to Tessa again because there's something I want to add. So, apparently Tessa, and you tell me if you've heard this story or not, is that Magnum TA, who's her father-in-law, I guess, or uncle-in-law.
What is the relationship there?
Something in law is what they are.
Yeah, okay.
So, apparently Tessa had met all her contractual demands, this is according to Magnum, and Impact were paying her like crap. So, his advice to Tessa was to offer to do one shot at a comparable price to what a top male star was earning, considering she was their champion. And Impact turned around and said, get stuffed, and then they never invited her back, and then took the title off her, which if, giving their world title to a woman wasn't bad enough, then they stripped her without her even losing. I mean, if it could have been any more devalued, that was pretty much what it was. Tessa...
TNA did this?
Oh, God, yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me.
She only has wrestled occasionally since until late 2023, where she has been a regular in CMLL. So, 2024, you think it's the right time to bring Tessa back anywhere?
They can try it and see what happens. Again, I'm not the arbiter of this. I'm not the booker of it. I'm guessing. And was she over before all those problems? I heard that she was hard to work with. I did hear that.
I think she's always been, her in-ring capabilities have always been thought of very highly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, according to the story they give her. If you give her a compelling story, yeah, she'll work. If not, that's why her past will take over. Because if her current stuff is not worth talking about and thinking about, well, the first thing they're going to jump to is her sordid past and bring that up. She's from a wrestling family anyway, so how old is the girl?
Late 20s still. Like 28, 29, something like that, I think.
But she will never be used in WWE. You think?
Depends.
I think her past would, not allow that.
I don't know. They've had like burglars and MVP there and stuff like that, haven't they? So, someone's past is someone's past. I mean, enough time goes by, then I'm sure that more or less.
Yeah, but see, the more time that goes by, she gets older too.
Yeah, but I mean, she's 28 now. I mean, that's really getting into prime age now. So, who knows? We'll see. We'll see. We're going to move on to this now. So, I don't think you know who this guy is. And to be honest, I forgot to write his first name down. Rossy. What do you know? What his first name is?
Japanese guy.
Yeah, Stardom. What the hell's his first name? Rossy Ogawa. Excuse me.
Yeah.
So Rossy Ogawa, comments by Kenny Omega, and I'm sure you'll have an opinion on this because it's been happening in wrestling, of course. But anyway, Kenny Omega is once again making the news with comments on his Twitch stream, this time related to former Stardom owner and now president of the new Joshi wrestling promotion Marigold, which is a stupid name, being a little too interested in female talent. So, SE Scoops once again, Omega said that women in wrestling are wise to keep away from Ogawa and his business practices. Here's the quote. There are a lot of people who refuse to work with Rossy for the very same reason. Some of those people are in WWE, some are in AEW. They have a very good reason. Later in the stream, Omega said that Ogawa puts underage girls in very revealing swimsuit calendars. The AEW EVP insinuated that there were even worse actions being committed, but didn't want lawyers barking at my door. Omega ended his comments by wishing Marigold performers luck and that he'd be very hesitant if he was in their shoes. Omega also said that he's with Asuka, who's in WWE, and that the pair of them are bros. The WWE Women's Tag Team Champion was previously stated that Ogawa created Stardom to defeat her. One more quote from someone who lived it, breathed it, who was very close friends in that industry, the information that they know. Just going to leave it at that. For that individual, Rossy, someday people will know the truth. A lot of higher-ups in Japan, they know exactly about the business he's up to and what he's been up to for decades. So, some heavy insinuations, if not outright allegations there.
Well, I guess what they're saying, this is all new to me. The Rossy Ogawa, he was head of Stardom, which is a female wrestling promotion in Japan. Mm-hmm. And I think what Omega was saying, that he grooms underage girls and brings them along in such a way that that I guess that leaves them open for abuse. No, a 16-year-old girl, I think, is too young. Now, does he use girls 16?
Apparently, according to Omega's things, as young as 13.
As young as 13.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but he's in Japan, so I can't say anything about it because that's the Japanese problem. It's not my problem. But if WWE or whoever works with him, they're working with him, that kind of makes him complicit in it. If they're going along with what he's doing now, if he did this in the United States, I think he could be arrested. And he could probably be convicted according to what happened. But having these young girls around, putting them in skimpy outfits, and that just sounds a little bit a little bit dubious, let me say. So I don't agree with it because I think that you can get those young girls not to do anything, but that's what grooming is. You get the talent to trust you, and then it gets progressively stronger and stronger and stronger as they go along, and all of a sudden, then you got a scandal on your hands. So, but it's no secret Omega doesn't like him at all. But WWE is working with him, correct?
Yes, they are now. Yeah, they're getting him.
So,
they're in bed with Rossy Ogawa with the new Marigold promotion.
And I swear to God, I never knew this guy existed until 6 months ago. Then I started hearing things about him. Now, if I'm hearing things about him, there's got to be something to it. What's that old saying? I say, where there's smoke, there's fire. So let's see. We'll see where this goes, and I hope it's not true, but could be. See, nothing surprises me about wrestling, really, because we got all kind of people from all ages and types of backgrounds and all. And if you can get into the business with an edge, no telling who we're working with. I bet I've worked with murderers and didn't know it. Rapists and didn't know it. Everything. Criminals, you don't know who you're working with. But that's what, and it's no different than in life. It's the same thing. But we'll see what happens.
Should we be suspicious of anyone who starts a women's only promotion who's a guy? Like Glow at the time.
Blow?
Not Blow.
Hey, wait a minute. I started a women's promotion one time. I didn't start a women's promotion. I started a women's division.
You started a women's division, but like a women's only promotion. Because I was thinking Glow. And what was the guy? David McLean.
David McLean.
Yeah, but I think he's.
I used to watch Glow.
I know you loved it.
I loved Glow because it was, to me, the work was horrible. I didn't give a crap about that, but it was just it was such a facetious show. And you didn't have anything like it, but I really enjoyed watching it because he would have those different gimmicks. And even when I was a kid, I kind of enjoyed it. And if they had probably came anywhere close to me, I'd have probably went to see them.
You're all in California or something like that. I need to stress that no one's ever said anything about David McLean, but he sure loves his women's pro wrestling. I mean, I think has he got another one now?
Yeah, he's got another one. It's called. I've seen it on. It's on the internet.
I think it beats AEW sometimes, or like Rampage and sometimes Collision. Sometimes their ratings they do quite well.
Well, not bad.
Yeah. So anyway, I do need to stress once again. No one's ever accused David McLean publicly of any being inappropriate with anyone. Anyway, thought we'd just get that out there again for legal sake. We're going to move on. Bill Goldberg versus AEW. On a recent radio appearance, Bill Goldberg stated the following when asked if he would ever appear in AEW. Goldberg seems to be making the news quite a lot at the moment. He says, "The product is too cheesy. It doesn't deserve to have." And then he sort of trails off, "I mean, whatever. Now you're going to really get me going," Goldberg exclaimed. "But if there was a comparable viable option as a competitor to WWE that would allow me to still look myself in the mirror after I was a member of their roster, yeah, then it would be a consideration, but not a chance." Is AEW too cheesy?
Oh, well, Goldberg what's he want?
A slap.
He wants some money. And he wants a big, big win for his go-away farewell leaving. I don't blame him. But so if you listen to Goldberg, it's not would you appear in AEW? It's not no. It's hell no. But guess what? Pay the money, and yeah, he'd get in there, and he'd probably have a hell of a match. So Goldberg, I put as much stock into what he says as Ric Flair, because money will change. Ric Flair said, "Oh, I wouldn't be with them for any type of money." Bull crap. Wave some $100 bills in front of Flair's face, yeah, and he'll go. I don't blame him. He can put up the hard front. Oh, it's too cheesy for me. And maybe Tony Khan and maybe Tony Khan don't want him. Maybe he might know that already. So
he's trying to get out in front and say that he doesn't want them.
Yeah, he said, "No, they're too cheesy for me." But I think Tony Khan may have already told him, "I'm not interested." I think they've already talked, haven't they?
Yeah, I'll get to that in a minute. I've got a quote from Tony Khan, in fact, but I will get to that in a minute. I want to get back to Bill's quote here. So the product is too cheesy, and then he trails off before he says a crucial word. "It doesn't deserve to have... ... I think he was going to say, AEW, it doesn't deserve to have me. So I think he's... and rightly so. He deserves a high opinion of himself. But I mean it's like his royalty, the way he's speaking about himself.
Well, in his head, he probably is. Because they brought him in. Here's a guy didn't know A from Z. in the wrestling business, and they brought him and taught him everything to do. And they didn't teach him to say anything because he couldn't talk. And you put him in there, and you'd have him win a match in 90 seconds. And you look at him, he's all jacked up. Yeah, they put him over, and he got over. But once he got over, then they didn't know what to do with him. Mm-hmm. Now that's where your working skill has to come in. He was almost unbeatable till he wasn't. Then all of a sudden, the facade floated away, and now he's not unbeatable anymore. Now he's got to work and try to get over, and I don't think he quite did it. Would you buy a ticket to see Bill Goldberg?
Yeah,
you would.
I really like Goldberg. I mean, I'm giving him grief here, and rightly so, but I still love Goldberg. I was a big Goldberg fan as a kid. I think it's WWE more than WCW somehow.
Ask me, would I buy a ticket to see him?
I know you wouldn't buy it. Would you buy a ticket to see Goldberg?
Not no. But a hell no. But I never liked him even when he was all jacked up and all.
Oh, no, the first year loved him. Before, and let's point it out here, Kevin Nash killed him with his booking, and it was Kevin Nash's idea. And Kevin Nash has got this big thing where he's like, hey, well, it wasn't to try and get me over, and they just wanted to get away from the streak of Goldberg. It's like, no one was clamouring for the streak to end. No one was clamouring for Kevin Nash to beat him, and then Hulk Hogan.
So, wait a minute, you're saying Kevin Nash is not telling the truth here?
No, what I'm saying is, right, so he's tried to explain his beating of Goldberg. Right, so, do you know the story, or shall I explain the story?
No, explain the story.
Kevin Nash gets into booking power several weeks before Starrcade 98, the biggest event of the year at the end of 98. He books himself to beat Bill Goldberg with outside shenanigans from Scott Hall and, of all people, Disco Inferno. So, then, the next night or the next week, I think it was probably the next week, or whenever it was, it doesn't matter, Kevin Nash and then Hulk Hogan face off, and then they do the finger poke of doom, if you'll know that, surely.
Yeah.
And then Hulk Hogan beats Kevin Nash for the title. Kevin Nash's explanation of what they were trying to do with Goldberg was they were going to rehab him from the streak, and then they were going to build him up, go through the NWO, and then win the title back. That's his claim. But then Nash says, hey, well, we couldn't do that because Goldberg stupidly put his arm through a limo and chopped up one of his arteries and nearly bled to death. This was on a live Nitro or Thunder.
I remember that.
Yeah, and that really did happen. The problem is that Kevin Nash doesn't seem to realise that there was almost a year between this whole finger poke of doom thing and then Goldberg nearly losing his arm with the limo thing. So really, Goldberg just flounders for a year. He's still popular, but he's not as popular as before Kevin Nash beat him.
He's known for the streak. And no, they didn't handle him right.
No. And then WWE.
But I was still not a big fan of his. I just wasn't. That doesn't mean that you're not justified in you enjoying him as a fan. But I never found him. I find guys enjoyable when they can talk and act a little bit and be entertaining. Goldberg was he was snorting. When you got in on him, you said, what is wrong with that guy? And he'd be spitting and sucking air through his nose. To me, not enjoyable qualities in a star. But they can do what they want to. But I think that has a shelf life. And I think they ran, if they hadn't have done that, they would have run through it anyway.
Well, they would have done, but, right, okay, so there were two things that killed off Goldberg. As soon as he won the title, then he was booked as a second-rate. He was the biggest star, and they booked him like he was like 8th on the roster, behind like Hogan and Nash and whoever else they did. I can't remember, Sting and everybody else, Luger, Conan, I don't know. And then they started monkeying around with or maybe this was first, they started putting out fake numbers for his win-loss streak, right? So like fans in the early days would say, oh, he's 14-0, he's 70-0, that kind of thing, because they'd actually follow the house show results, and it was a fun thing for the fans to do. And then WCW, of course, had to add numbers to it. So then one day, Tony Schiavone says he's 81-0, and really he was only 79. And then it stopped being fun. And then they started piping in chants for Goldberg, which made them stop chanting as much. And then the whole Kevin Nash thing where he beats him for the belt and Goldberg was never the same. And then the rest is history, really, with Goldberg. And then he goes to WWE and they do a concerted effort to kill his momentum as quickly as he gets in.
So Goldberg, once he upset about that, WWE didn't want to give him his last match? Or what? I
think Vince McMahon had made him a promise, and then under the Vince regime, they welched on it, and they didn't give him a big send-off match, and he's bitter at that.
Maybe. But even though if he went to AEW, that's still, even though Sting went to AEW for his retirement match, you're still going to a lesser organization to have your retirement match.
Yes, but they did a good job with it. They filled out an arena. I mean, you can't knock him for that.
Well, then what is his bitch? Because he don't want to go to AEW?
Well, maybe because it's a B promotion compared to WWE and he only wants to work the A promotion, I guess.
I don't know. Well, we'll see where he goes. I think it could still work. Put him on there, and he got his idea, say, watching Sting, and do an angle with somebody and just have a match. If you took that back to Greensboro, you may do the same house. I don't know. He wasn't Sting. That was his town, Greensboro, North Carolina. It was a 20,000 seat arena. But I don't know if Goldberg would put 20,000 people in there. But still, you give the people what they want, a big win and a big send-off, and it's old time's sake. And Tony may have caught on with this past history thing and see if he can do it again.
Funny how if he wants to wrestle in front of loads of people in a stadium, Wembley, this August.
That would be good. That would be good. Wembley.
Because then they could hold off on Will Ospreay winning the title until Wembley the year after as the big hook. But then this one, because they've already sold 50,000 or so tickets, then Goldberg could be the big star of this one. And that could be a retirement. I don't know how many people, AEW fans, would enjoy it, but
great idea. I think Tony Khan just heard something here. He might be able. I mean, he could do it if he wanted to, but he may not even had that thought, and he may have. So we'll see. But I do think putting him on the Wembley card would be a valuable addition.
Because you asked me about it before, Tony Khan stated about 10 months ago at the AEW Double or Nothing press scrum, your favourite word. I've talked to Bill when he's not been under contract at times, and I have a good relationship with Bill. I have a good conversation with him, but I've had a lot of great conversations with Bill. We have a lot in common, and we have a lot of mutual friends. And well, I don't know how good these conversations were if Bill's just called you cheesy-ass promotion AEW. Yeah. So I'm thinking, my guess is that Tony Khan is going to release the secret audio recordings of their chats, but in like a year's time when it's no longer relevant. Like he did with the CM Punk thing.
He could do that. I hope he does get a retirement match. I hope he does WWE. They don't need it. But Tony Khan putting it at Wembley, that would be great for the UK wrestling fan. That'd be great. They're not going to see it anywhere else. And this is going to be his last match because he don't take matches. Sting doesn't either. So Sting, he's had his last match, and people in Greensboro got to see this. People in UK get to see Goldberg's last match. So Tony Khan may inadvertently fall into who else could have a last match, let's say.
Sami Callihan. I don't know. Who would like? Anyone could have a last match.
Tessa Blanchard. Oh, she's already had her last match. So, but
I'm sorry.
I would be interested in seeing it.
That's the one person who would turn up that I'd consider going, is to go see Goldberg. That'd be cool. Or like outside like The Rock or someone. But in fairness, I was in Philadelphia and I couldn't be bothered seeing The Rock, and he was down the road. So I don't know. There you go. Right. We shall move on. And TNA, because, mentioned Tessa, so why not? Eric Young detaches his ear. Tell me what you saw about the video. You saw the video.
Hey, I like Eric Young. I really do. They wasted him down in NXT. because they can't use everybody. But Eric Young, he was there, and we got him over because he was like the quirky guy, and we just did different stuff with him, and he was over. So, and he enjoyed working there because his buddy was there, Scott D'Amore, who was the booker. But he did a move with Frankie Kazarian, and they were trying to do some kind of belly-to-belly suplex off the top turnbuckle or top rope in the corner, and his ear came down, and it caught the edge of that table. And I don't know how bad it was, but he had to have a plastic surgeon reattach his ear back to the side of his head. And you see it start bleeding automatically. But when he lands, you see the blood start pouring out. So things like that can happen, and I hate it happened to him, but I'm glad he's okay. I really am. But things like that, there's an element of danger in anything you do in that ring. So, and I'm glad that he escaped. I hope it didn't interfere with his hearing or anything, but I'm glad he's okay.
I think tables are seen as very, very safe, but anything's unpredictable, as you say. I talked to Rob. Well,
not the edges of them.
Well, no, the edges aren't that predictable as well. Definitely, although all the tables are quite uniform these days. But I remember I talked to Rob Van Dam not too long ago, and I asked him about an injury he got. He landed through a table, and a shard of it somehow flicked up and tore out his eyelid.
Wow. Who was this?
Rob Van Dam.
I hate tables anyway. I hate hardcore wrestling to start off with. I mean, going through tables, and I think they overuse that stuff now. The table in the corner, and the table outside, and the table here, and the table there. And I said, why don't we just start using flamethrowers now? I mean, they used everything they could use. Remember, they used to use the bread pans?
Oh, yeah.
And you hit somebody with a clang, clang, clang. It didn't even sound like it hurt anybody. But they used everything they could use. And if something else comes up, they'll be using that. But you can get hurt with those tables. They do have sharp edges. And it's seriously a wonder more people haven't been hurt than before. One thing I would not take? Tacks. They say, oh, it doesn't hurt. The hell it don't. Abyss used to tell me, he said, oh, no, you spread them out and, it doesn't hurt. Well, yeah, I think it does. If anything's going into my skin. And I often thought, what if it went into your back just enough to maybe catch a nerve? It's very dangerous. So if anybody comes, well, I don't like hardcore matches anyway. I've said that 1,000 times. I hated them. Because what is the purpose of learning to wrestle if you're going to go out and do all that crazy stuff? Hell, you can go to any bar, any Saturday night, any Friday night, and find somebody willing to do that crazy stuff. They just get drunk enough and to go and do it. That doesn't take any skill whatsoever. It doesn't even take timing. You just take it. And the fans sitting out there seeing it, they're not feeling it. They're seeing it. And guess what? It's like a 15-second thing. Oh, wow, he went through a table. Oh, he went through some tacks. And as soon as it happens, it's over and it's gone. Not like winning a belt or doing anything memorable. It's just doing the stuff that 1,000 other people have done.
It was memorable the first time. The tax, definitely.
Well, it'd be memorable for me the first time because I wouldn't do it.
So you said you wanted some more Vince McMahon news. Nothing spectacular here, but unsurprisingly, McMahon filed a response to Janel Grant's accusations. Finally, it's taken quite a while. claiming that everything was consensual. You know, we figured that by using the love letter, which Janel Grant claims that Vince forced her to write for him, and, you know, was highly plagiarized as proof. But there's more that Vince has come out with. The NDA agreement, which called for McMahon to pay Grant $3 million, contained a clause which stated, by signing this agreement, Grant acknowledges that she will have waived any rights she may have had to pursue or bring a lawsuit or make any legal claims against McMahon and or WWE and any of its directors, officers, employees, agents and representatives. So they're trying to say immediately that you can't do a lawsuit against us because this NDA says you can't, that you signed. What are you eating? And your reaction as well.
I forgot something. It's called sizzling cinnamon. That's what I'm eating.
As long as it's not Lindor.
But I heard something about NDAs this week. They're illegal going forward. So this whole thing now is, see, when it first hit, it was hot, it was wildfire. Oh my God, I cannot believe this happened. And that doesn't take away that it happened. It just, now they're watering it down, and NDA, but he's famous for NDAs. Famous. He's always had them. And they have been enforceable up to now, I guess. And I think, I just read something about NDAs this past week. I got to go back and read it. But what I was reading is that NDA now going forward is illegal. Just the NDA is illegal. Because I think that was workers going like from, I think you mentioned it before, Apple to some other, say Samsung, you said. They can't use any of they're withheld from using it. I don't even know how that's enforceable at all. It gets confusing to me.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
This is Dutch's daughter by everyone.
Yeah, she's hollering from the other room. Can't work from a competitor. But anyway, I don't know how this is going to turn out. But I am going to say, I still think a settlement's going to be made.
I figure it will as well. A typical NDA says current law makes it clear that you cannot be prevented from reporting a possible crime to the police, which Janel Grant is alleging that a crime has happened. So therefore, the NDA, if a crime is found to have happened, the NDA is completely useless anyway. And a lot of NDAs that get challenged.
But how would they find that a crime did happen?
Well,
there was only one other person there,
or two occasionally.
Yeah. Now, John Laurinaitis.
Or the personal trainer. Not the personal trainer, the physical therapist, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
But, no, that's the point. I mean, that's the problem with sexual assault cases all the time. That's why the conviction rate is so low, because very nearly always often, there's only ever two people there and it's one word against the other. That's why the conviction rate's so low. And it's actually lower now than it used to be.
Well, I think he's guilty as hell. But if you go by the evidence, they may not even convict him.
No.
I think he'll make a settlement. I think he knows he's guilty. He's just way out. Since he just sold $2.3 billion of stock, it's not like he's low on the money pole.
No, but
he could pull out some money and just say, hey, go away.
Exactly, but this is why it's going to a civil suit, because the burden of proof is a lot lower, or the balance of probability. So with a civil suit, and we said this on early ones, a civil suit it's 50-50. If it's found more than 50% in your favour, or in the balance of likelihood, you're 51% right and the other person's 49% wrong, the 49% wrong person still owes you all of the, needs to award you everything. In that sense, you can be that close as far as balance of probability of who's right or wrong. Whereas a criminal a criminal conviction needs to be beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a far higher burden of proof to convict.
Yeah, that's total agreement. If you have 12 jurors on a criminal suit, mm-hmm. all 12 have to agree.
Or you can have a split like 11-1. That has happened.
No, not in the U.S. Not in the U.S.
It might depend on the state.
No, it's total consent. Total, it's got to be unanimous. But in a civil suit, it can be split.
Yeah, but you don't have a jury there either, so it's going to be a judge on the balance of probability who's more right, who's more wrong.
But are you sure you can't have a jury on a civil suit?
You generally don't. Yeah.
You generally don't, but you could.
That's a funny one. I think at some points you can have. I think I've heard maybe. I don't know. Come on, lawyers, someone get involved with that.
Yeah, somebody get involved in this, because you're trying to make me and James out here to be Perry Masons, and we're not. So we don't even know what we're talking about. But I think this is a good move on Vince, and he's come up with something. And I want to see what Janel Grant's lawyer has. They've been awfully quiet.
Well, not quite so quiet, because Vince made a couple of other allegations in this response to Janel Grant's lawsuit. So, more interestingly than any of that, Janel's Grant suit says that... Vince McMahon's filing says that Grant was reeling from the death of her... What the hell am I saying? Janel Grant's suit says that Grant was reeling from the death of her parents when she met Vince. You'll remember she was very vulnerable, etc. Mm-hmm. But McMahon's lawyers have stated that her father actually died 2 years before Janel met Vince, and her mother died, it's implied, earlier than that. So her parents died apparently at least 2 years before. So they're sort of calling into question her state of mind with the parents' death. And then McMahon also disputes that Janel was giving her father round-the-clock care towards the end of his life because he was already in a care home in his final days. But Janel's lawyer says that her father was living in in-home hospice care where Janel was indeed caring for him full-time. So he's saying one, she's saying the other. But the big one's interesting is that McMahon has said that they were both in relationships when they met and began their relationship. This is Janel and McMahon. With Janel being engaged to her fiancé, attorney Brian Goncalves. It's a weird surname, but I think it's Goncalves anyway. Or Goncalves, who knows. They both lived in the same ritzy Park Tower luxury building. Vince McMahon lived like 4 floors up, with Grant visiting McMahon in his condo before returning to her fiancé that same night. So, this was a big bone of contention with people claiming, well, Janel Grant's making it up because she couldn't have been on that hard of a time because she was living in this really plush condo. Anyway, Janel's lawyer has responded that her and her fiancé Brian had already broken up by the time Janel and Vince had become intimately involved, and that Brian was allowing Janel to stay in his apartment while she rebuilt her life, as she had no income or place to move back to at that point in time. So this is complete 180s as far as what people are claiming is going on here. It's interesting.
Well, it is interesting. It's hard to determine how the judge would rule on that. That's he said, she said, which is usually just evidence thrown out. And she could still be reeling from the death of her father and the death of her mother. I don't care if it was 5 years. I mean, we're trying to say, well, would I be grieving after 2 years? I don't know if I would, but some people probably don't get over that too easily.
Yep, my
and
uncle,
if she didn't have a job, didn't have any way to pay her bills, she was probably nuts. But again, Vince picked her out, and Vince got her to do all this stuff allegedly. There's that word again, allegedly. So we'll see. So now every time we talk about this, my mood changes just a little bit. I think Vince is guilty as hell, but I think it moves a little bit toward Vince because he's got a pretty sharp attorney. Yep. And they get you thinking that way, and all of a sudden you go, I don't know about the total thing, but I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to hear the whole trial.
My uncle is an uncle by marriage. He's a dickhead, by the way. Everyone hates him.
He's what?
He's a dickhead. Everybody hates this.
Oh, okay.
We're trying not to swear on this podcast anymore. I won't give his name out. His voice never broke, which was hilarious. So he's a full-grown man with a beard, and he was like, woo, you know, he sounded ridiculous. Anyway, his like dad died in like the late 90s or something. He was on like antidepressant medication for years over that. So yeah, some people take things harder than others. That's life.
So the only thing new in the investigation with Vince is that he's contested the NDAs. That's the only thing new, right?
Yeah, that's the only real big thing, apart from they're just claiming two different sets of facts here, except that one of them involves a third person, and this is the fiancé, Brian, the lawyer that Janel was living with. So at least we've got someone who we can ask.
Okay, what is the latest on the John Laurinaitis issue?
Nothing's been said about John.
But he did break up with the Bella's mother, right? They're no longer together, correct?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I mean, they've kept that quiet too.
Yeah, well.
But I think if I was the Bella's mother and this came out against my boyfriend, I think I'd be broke up with him too. I wouldn't want to go through that.
Paid well.
But we'll see. We'll see. If what? What'd you say?
He was paid well, so, a good old settlement.
Yeah.
to soothe this.
That's why I'm saying I want to hear more about this Vince thing, but it's going to take its time. But every time that I hear something about it changes just a little bit, and we'll see. But again, I'm gonna go back on what I'm gonna say. I don't think it'll go to trial. I think a settlement will be made because that's the best thing. She wants money, and he wants to get out of it.
God, I hope she's got the resolve to take it to court, and then discovery has to happen, and then all the information comes out, especially if the NDA is found not legal, and then all the other NDAs that he's got women to sign and that he signed are also found not legal, and then we can have an absolute ball on the names. I mean, I know about half the names anyway, but yeah.
Okay, if the NDAs are no longer legal, I think Vince would be... He'll have a full-time team of attorneys working just on this. So we'll see.
What's the shit creek without a paddle? Is it?
No, yeah, it's up shit creek without a paddle.
There you go. Is it galloping up diarrhea drive without a saddle? I like that one as well because that rhymes. Okay, we're gonna move on. We've only got two things left, and we are going to talk about Tony Khan. How could we not? Anyway, so. This next portion is called Burger After Burger After Burger.
Yeah.
Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, you watched that promo. You've seen what Sheamus is looking like. So give us the whole rundown.
Apparently, in his time off, he cut back on his workout. So he comes back. Now he has a little bit of a tummy.
Well, shoulder injury.
So he came back. He had a little bit of a tummy. Not that bad, but he still had one. So in the interview that Drew McIntyre brings it up, that you've had burger after burger after burger, which the people, they can tell that he's talking about a little bit of a tummy there. And, he tries to laugh it off. And then they go back and forth a little bit. So what is the issue about this? Is because McIntyre brought it up?
I think it's because
it sounds like a shoot.
Well, it's sort of playing off the internet, making fun of Sheamus for his two things, right? We didn't mention this last week. Is that he was overweight, yes, but he's had a near crippling shoulder injury, which meant he couldn't work out. And two, he was brought back to the main roster like an emergency call up, like quite a few weeks before he was actually going to,
because of Punk.
Probably because of a lot of people. I mean, there's no Roman Reigns, there's no The Rock, there's no Punk, there's no who else? Jimmy Uso, Punk. I think.
Yeah, there's a few more. There's one more I know that they need to cover.
Seth Rollins.
He popped in my head, then he popped out. But so he was brought up on an emergency call up, but he really wasn't ready to come back. So when they have this interview, it sounded like a shoot, and it did. Because usually those are not brought up, like the personal or an appearance of a guy. It's never really brought up. It could be brought up, a guy kissing somebody's butt, trying to get favor backstage. But personally, it's never really brought up. So what's the issue here?
I think they're just building up an issue between Drew and Sheamus, just a feud later on because so many people are injured that they need someone with a name to feud with Drew.
Well, I think Sheamus, when he starts working out, I think he'll be back in shape. And these guys can have a match. They can really, when they talk about bangers, they did that. What at the Castle Clash at the Castle?
Yeah.
Was that them?
Yeah.
Oh, they burn it up. I'm sure that Sheamus and McIntyre both were working their asses off that night because they were home. They were back at home and had a lot of people out there that personally knew them, so they turned it on, and that match was probably the best match they've ever had together. And both those guys are not little.
Mm-hmm.
They're like 260, 270, and about 6'4", 6'5". They're big guys. So I really enjoyed their match, and they worked solid. They worked snug. So let's see where this angle goes, because I'm interested in seeing it now.
Sorry, I've got a bit of biro plastic. I'll just end up in my mouth and just chewing this pen like crazy throughout this podcast. Sheamus has now been going back and forth with Drew on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen anything, but there was an image of Drew. Because you actually watched this match at WrestleMania, you know, at the end where Drew McIntyre wins the World Heavyweight title from Seth Rollins, and then he starts crawling on all fours towards CM Punk and the thing. And now Sheamus has dubbed Drew McIntyre the Sex Panther.
You know what a line I did like in this exchange? He says, "I can lose the weight. You can't lose, stupid." Now that was and there's no comeback for that at all. So he got himself
beat. Drew said,
really.
"Yes, you can."
Yeah. Yeah, if he come back with something, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the interview better than the angle, because they're both good talkers. So we'll see how this ends up. If he came back too early, I hate he had to come back early, but sometimes that happens. The whole roster gets hurt, or a bunch of them in that position get hurt. Dominic is hurt too, right?
Rhea Ripley as well.
So, Rhea Ripley's hurt. They're walking around. They're all on injured reserve, I guess. So, and that's one of the things that on a creative team you deal with. If you got a bunch of key performers or key talent that are hurt and you can't use them, then you start digging. Then you realize what kind of a job you've done with the underneath talent. Because if you've really buried them, hell, you're burying the same ones that you're going to need. So that's why you got to keep everybody not strong like your top guys, but semi-strong. At least they're halfway believable, and you can put them back in the game. So we'll see what a good job they've done, or they think they've done, and we'll see where they go with this.
Now, the main event, as it were. Tony Khan.
Your old buddy.
Tony Khan, your old buddy, was attacked on AEW Dynamite. Okay, well, I don't need to say anything else. You watched the entire thing. I watched it more than once.
Okay,
so talk through the entire thing. There's a lot to analyze here.
Well, I think about a year ago, a while back, they asked Tony Khan, because he has a thing about going out there and making big announcements or signing big talent, but he always wants to be front and center of the cameras when any of that happens. And they brought it up to him, do you want to be a regular character on the show? And he says, no, I'm not interested in doing that. So this past Wednesday night, was it Wednesday night?
Yeah, last night, yeah, as we record this.
Okay. He went out there, and little elephant boy was out there. And what's his real name? Jack Perry?
Yeah, with the stick-on beard.
Yeah.
It doesn't look real. I mean, it's a pretty decent beard, but it doesn't look real on him.
And, you know, a lot of things have happened between Elephant Boy and Khan. You know, Tony Khan got rid of him with the CM Punk alleged fight backstage. And they've been working this back and forth. Would he come back? Won't he come back? And, he's been working in Japan. So they got in the ring and they wanted to make up. And Jack Perry says, listen, I want to come back. This is my home, or whatever he said. And let's shake hands. Let's let bygones be bygones, and let's get back together. Everybody saw this coming, so they hugged, shook hands, they hugged. And Elephant Boy looked at the camera with a smug look on his face. You knew something was coming. And then all of a sudden he had the mic. So he hit him did he hit him in the tummy with it?
He did, but you wouldn't realize that from the sort of way that Tony Khan reacted.
And Tony, I don't know. You could tell Tony wasn't used to doing this. It looked odd. And then all of a sudden you had the brothers come in, and Heckle and Jekyll, and they come in, and who's the Japanese guy? Okada?
Yep.
What's his name?
Yep.
Okada came in. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And then they kind of got Jack. I mean, Jack wasn't attacking him or anything, but they kind of pushed him back and then got him up. And then they turned on him. And they do some kind of I've never seen this move. They got him up for a pile driver, and the guy gets on the turnbuckle, the brother, I don't know which one. I mean, and he comes up and he does a forward flip, and they both go down. I thought it hurt the brother worse than it hurt damned Tony Khan. And then that's supposed to be the angle. And then they leave him laying in the ring. I don't think it was executed well. And here you got Tony Khan is not even a wrestler. Now, would he be on TV next week? That's saying, well, this attack on him meant nothing. So I don't know where they're going to go with this. As a fan of watching it and telling a story, I kind of like the story. At least he attempted to tell one. But I don't even know what the story was. The story's almost not even... It's almost unbelievable to even conceive that Tony Khan, they wouldn't cart him out there on the stretcher. Did they cart him out or no?
No, they might have done afterwards, but the interesting thing is that Tony Khan's dad, Shad Khan, rolls up at the end of it and looks very despondent.
They didn't show that on TV either.
No, the clip that I sent
that would be more embarrassing to have your grown man. Then you have your dad who's like 70. Then he shows up. Like, what's he going to do? I don't know who. This had to be, of course, Tony Khan's idea. Totally. But I don't think it's going to work. I really don't. But, I think why Tony's doing this, he wants to be on that Wembley card.
What, as a wrestler?
I don't know what, but we'll see. I think he went over there and he got a touch of it, I guess. I don't know. But this is what kills wrestling promotions, is when you involve someone like Tony Khan, who weighs like $150 maybe, and you put him in there with seasoned professional wrestler, not necessarily that big.
Who also weigh $150.
Well, they weigh $160 because they had a sandwich before they walked out there. But then I don't think Tony is. I don't think he didn't have that connectability to fans. He just doesn't. Now somebody needs to tell him that, but he's the owner. Who's going to tell him that? Nobody. But Tony, if you want to know if you can connect with fans, listen, give me a call and I'll tell you. Do you connect? Not no. What is it? But hell no. I think most of the people, they didn't even boo him. I think they kind of liked it.
They cheered. There was a huge cheer.
That's what I'm saying. He's a big heel and doesn't even know it. Maybe him and Jericho need to get together. They'd have more heat than anybody.
Thing is, it's like they've got maybe 2,000. I mean, a week out they had like 1,600 tickets sold for Daly's place because they ran that place to death, and AEW isn't selling tickets very well at the moment anyway. And even the diehard 2,000 or so fans at Daly's place still cheered when Tony Khan was attacked, which I find was quite incredible.
Hell, I kind of stood up and applauded myself.
So,
but I don't know. Sometimes I see things and I go, I didn't even do that. I don't know what he's trying to do. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to create some controversy of Jack Perry coming. I know what the plan is, but will it work? I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, but that's the predictable way to do it. I would think that. Was there any different way to do it? What would you do?
So, I mean, I don't know what I'd do. I mean, I don't know. But I want to bring this up, right? And you know how we amuse ourselves with Jack Perry, and I know you're not a big fan of him. But I thought he was decent on the microphone.
Oh, he was a lot better than I thought.
I thought with his little shit-eating grin to the camera that was a really good touch. I actually think Jack Perry did a good job. Aside from the fact that he looks like Jack Perry and he looks like he couldn't break an egg. That's a problem. Yeah. Like, it's like you've got Tony Khan and Jack Perry and you can't quite tell who the wrestler is. And this is Tony Khan you're comparing him to. In that sense. Okay, the thing that
if you go by the fans' reaction, Jack Perry was the babyface.
Well, he's got a legitimate grievance. I think a lot of people can understand. Tony Khan suspended him for 8 months for a fight he didn't physically instigate.
Okay, why do you think he did that? He fired CM Punk. And I think that Elephant Boy has served his suspension after 8 months. But he never fired him, right? He just suspended him, right?
Yep.
I think the people says, I don't know. They've had time to think about it. So we'll see. Now, hell, I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm watching it like everybody else. But but I am kind of interested. At least Tony Khan got it to where I'm interested in the story a little bit. Whether I believe it or not, that's not the point. The point is, where's it going? And so, hey, the story could miss me right at the start, but after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they may keep adding on it or just doing something else, and it could catch on. So, but we'll see. That's another thing. I'm out of anything I saw on AEW this week, it was Hook, which is one of their upcoming stars, and Jericho, and Tony Khan and Elephant Boy, and Jack Perry. I'm interested in it.
So, we have to talk about Tony Khan's first ever bump. Now, keep in mind that Tony Khan once... Now, keep in mind, and this is true, and I couldn't find the video to show you, to send to you, that he once nearly fell over getting into the ring. He was getting over the middle rope, and he sort of sat on the middle rope and started going like that, all arms and legs, and then he managed to sort of right himself. But this is someone who can't do anything physically. And then he has to take his first bump. Dutch, have you, in any real fight or any professional wrestling match, have you ever been punched or attacked in the stomach and taken a flat back bump from it?
No, I don't think so. Did he take a flat back bump or did he take a forward bump? I thought he took a forward bump.
No, he took a flat back bump.
Well, we didn't say he was technically talented at all. I think he's like I don't think he's ever played a sport. I don't think he's even played soccer. He may have played run up and down the field, kick the ball. He may have done this, but he doesn't look like he's athletically inclined at all. And if you look at it, Okay, if I'm a fan sitting there, I don't care if he's athletic or not. You can take somebody who's not athletically inclined and get sympathy on him. I don't think he had any sympathy at all. I think most of those people that come to Daly's place in Jacksonville, I think they kind of know Tony personally anyway. So, and who knows? He could have went out there and told everybody, I'm going to do this before it aired. Who knows what he says? I have no idea. But the only thing I can go by is what I see in the crowd. They kind of wanted him to get the dog crap beat out of him. And even when the Bucks came in, I expected that too. Because it's time for it to change.
Mm. Hey,
So
at least they're changing it. I mean, that's the very least you can say. It sort of I've got a theory that Tony Khan is coin operated. Because he's
coin up.
Yeah. So you you put a coin into a machine, right?
Yeah.
And then it runs out.
Yeah.
That's what Tony Khan did when he was hit in the stomach. He sort of just stood there, and then he gets hit in the stomach, and then he just goes, boom. Mm-hmm. And then he takes about 10 seconds. No, not 10 seconds. He takes a few seconds to realise that he should have been selling his tummy. So he's just like, he's dead. And then after about 4 seconds, he goes...
So when does his dad get in the ring? After the cameras leave, of course. But did you see that?
It was the last couple of seconds of the show. The clip that I'd sent you didn't have the very last bit, so you didn't see that. He looked sad.
I think he might be trying to get his dad involved too.
Well, the reason that his dad was there and the reason that they were in Daly's place was because of the NFL draft, and they had to do stuff with the NFL draft's happening this week, yeah?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so they were dealing with stuff with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is why they had to be, close enough.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So his dad was there as well. There's one more thing I want to bring up. Do you remember last week or this Tuesday just gone, in fact, we saw The Undertaker tombstone Hulk Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
And there was about that much gap, about 3 feet.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Tony Khan had the same thing. He's got like a foot tall afro, and like his afro didn't come up like within like 2 feet of the floor. So they very much kept him safe on that one.
Okay, this was at the end of the show.
Yes,
I just saw a clip of it.
Yeah,
and we went off with that.
Yeah.
Well, it didn't end too bad. Let me say that. At least they did something.
Yeah, we're talking about it.
Well, let's see where it goes. I hope it leads somewhere. And hey, keep Tony involved. Keep those guys employed. And let's see where it ends up.
Since 1996, we've had a continual, it's like a wrestling trope now of like good guys and bad guy promoters getting involved in matches and stuff like that. Are you looking forward to... Do you think Tony Khan's actually going to be that? Do you think he's going to be a weekly TV character?
I hope not. But he needs a lot of work. He's not a... you remember when Vince, when they had him, the asshole owner? He was perfect. He's a jack-off anyway. And the people, if he doesn't want you to like him, you won't like him. Tony may not want to do that, though. He may want to be the good guy, but Vince took that and turned it back around where they're going to question him, and he was supposed to be the good guy, and he turned it around on them, and then he turned heel. Yeah, he did a great, great job of it, because everybody has a boss. You hate that boss. You want to punch them sometimes. And he was just, he was that way. He had more heat. I mean, him and Steve Austin were literally made for each other. And they wore that till they couldn't wear it out anymore. And then they still get something off of what was it, 2 years ago that he took the pile driver from, what did he take from Austin?
Oh, the stunner.
Oh, the stunner.
That's the worst stunner in a litany of worst stunners.
It was the worst stunner of all time, but yet the fans eat it up because he is still a butthole. He's still an asshole. But he's probably the most effective heel that WWE has ever had, I think.
You also said something very, very true there, is that when, the Montreal screw job happens, and then Vince McMahon, supposedly, in his mind, was the babyface in that situation. All the fans saw was that he screwed Brett. And then he comes up with a two-part interview with Jim Ross where he's legitimately talking like he is the babyface, but coming across so bad, and he doesn't even realize it. And it takes him a few weeks to realize that, hey, well, if they're going to boo me, I might as well play up to it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, with Tony Khan as well, as you also said, people were cheering when he got hurt. So what's to like about him? He is a scrawny, uncoordinated billionaire's son. Surely he's got bad guy written all over him. He does. What can he do to actually get there and be a decent TV performer? Because he's got a lot of things to hate about him.
Yeah, he's not experienced enough to do that, though. And I don't think he would want to even do that because he wants to be the babyface, I think. Vince wanted to be the babyface too, but he understood that, okay, see, he's been around the business all his life. Tony Khan hasn't. So for him to be a real heel, I think he'd have to take some lessons, and he'd have to, I think it'd be very easy for him to switch over, but I don't know if he could do it or not. I don't think his acting chops are good enough to let him do it. Now, his mentality may not let him do it too. He's from Jacksonville, he's used to people going around, oh, Mr. Khan, Mr. Khan, Mr. Khan, Mr. Khan. Now, if he pants himself out to be an asshole on TV, now they're going to treat him differently on the street. I'm talking about on the street. But I don't think he has the ability or the experience to do that. But boy, he would be a good one. He would be, he's little, scrawny looking. And for him to have the power over bigger guys financially, and, he owns the company, that would get him a lot of heat. And he could go out there and he could look at, and if he really wants to be a heel, if he would look down on the fans, that they're below him, beneath him, that's where the heat's going to come from. But see, Vince, even when he got to be, he didn't mind getting the crap beat out of him either. But see, Tony's not big enough to get the crap beat out of him.
Oh, he is.
He's what now?
Oh, he is.
But I don't know. We'll see what they do with it. Now, if they took their time with this, maybe trained him a little bit, he could get by with it. And then again, but who's running it? Who's going to run it? Him? He can't do it.
No. I actually think his feelings would be hurt if the fans booed him.
Well, they booed him the other night.
Yeah.
You think his feelings are hurt today?
I bet maybe they are. I bet that his feelings were a bit hurt that there wasn't any sympathy for him.
But yet, he could be proud of the fact that he got them to respond to him.
That's fish in a barrel, though. I mean, that's no achievement. They've attacked someone who they know's the owner. He could have been a wet rag on a stick and get attacked, and the fans would get a reaction,
Again, I'm interested in it. I just want to see how they're gonna go forward with it.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack, you're the booker. Say you're the booker. What are you going to do next week with Jack Perry? Shouldn't he be fired?
Well, that's a good question. So CM Punk lunges at him and gets fired. So you've got 4 people. Well, Okada actually just stood and watched, but you've got Jungle Boy and the Young Bucks who all physically attack him and pile drive him, and one guy does a flip and hurts himself. So surely they should all, be arrested and suffer, deal with custodial sentences.
Okay. The Young Bucks, they have the experience to do this. So I think he's got to take a couple of weeks out And the Bucks go out there and they just blast him and take Perry with him.
Here's what it should be then. You've given me an idea. The Bucks are the EVPs.
Yeah, so and they can take over.
Exactly.
They've been doing it. They've been doing it anyway.
Exactly. But now with Tony Khan out, they can do that Triple H Stephanie McMahon thing. I mean, I always hated that, but it really makes sense. Tony Khan's gone. He's injured. Now the Bucks are in charge. For some reason, they've not been fired, of course, but it's wrestling. And then they can stack the deck, and then they can have their team of corporation. They can have their team of anti-corporation and baby faces rallying against this unjust system.
They could give Jack Perry an office of his own.
Mm.
Here's your office, and this all. Now he's in management because
there's a space.
The Bucks like him.
They never filled Cody Rhodes' EVP space, did they? So maybe, we've got a spare fourth office.
Sometimes it kind of writes itself.
The thing is, but I know you, and you would really relish in filming all the backstage vignettes where you go to the AEW offices in Jacksonville. And
that's where it is. And they're going to show Jack, hey, remember when we were talking, whatever, we're going to get rid of him. Well, we've opened up some spots. We're running the company now. And they show his office. He's got a car. He got a special place to stay. He's got a little plane. If he wants to go somewhere, he just goes down there and gets in it and they take off. So he's on their team. He's on the Bucks team. They make him an EVP. And he fits right in.
I've got it right. So Jack Perry, so they offer him a plane, and he said, "Well, when I'm the son of a Hollywood superstar, Luke Perry. I've already got a plane. Just little things like that. So he could be. Raven did this in WCW, right? So he was all disaffected youth, Nirvana, shoegazing, that kind of thing. The world is against me, kind of. And then WCW then revealed that he had a really rich mother, and he was actually the son of a millionaire. So you could have that self-pitying character like Raven, but everybody knows that Jack Perry is a multi-millionaire because he's been bequeathed it by his father who passed away a few years ago. So you could have that sort of weird dichotomy.
Well, they got it there in front of them to write the story.
Jesus Christ, we've just written the story for them. Why are they hiring us?
Yeah, that's it. Well, they got to have some kind of plan.
Do they?
Well, they got to have something to screw it up. That's not the way it was supposed to have gone. But let's see what they do with it. We give them an idea, and I'm sure that they have thought about this before we got here. But we'll see what they do with it.
I've got it. I've got one more thing. And who goes against the Young Bucks and Jungle Boy or Elephant Boy is Bryan Danielson. Why?
Yeah.
Because publicly, Shad Khan has said that if anything happened to Tony Khan, Bryan Danielson should be the one to take over AEW from Tony. So he is already been mentioned publicly. He is the heir apparent. He is the next of kin kind of person. Something happens to Tony. Something has happened to Tony. Well, then. So
he has to have somebody to run the company.
Exactly. So you've got Bryan with Tony's interests.
Bryan. Yep.
And then you've got the Young Bucks who have their own power with their own interests. Then you can form two groups of the pro Tony and the pro EVPs. And then I hate you don't have an entire two factions going, swallow up the entire promotion. But there you go. It writes itself. We've done all that in 10 minutes. And I guarantee it'll be better than whatever they do.
Well, that's how it works. Because guys sit around, drink a few beers, and down them. That's what the Bucks are doing. And it's easy to book yourself. And those Bucks, they can get some heat. They do get heat because you notice them, and they are very, very talented in that ring.
Absolutely. On that note, we've put some wrestling. Well, we don't know if it's gone wrong yet. We've put some booking right there. I think we did a good job. And on that note, I think we're going to close up shop. So thank you everybody for watching. We won't do the plugs again, but the one thing I will say is if you want to submit a question, for our Ask Dutch Anything episodes that we have every single Tuesday on the same podcast feed as Storytime with Dutch Mantell, and of course on YouTube every Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern is Ask Dutch Anything. You email questions for dutch@gmail.com, and the best questions will make it into the script every Tuesday. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and we will catch you again next week. And Dutch, we the people.
Yes, what he said.